So our guest tonight, Tariq, has been a Connecticut resident for since he was 12 years old. You all know him for edible arrangements that he started about 10 years ago. Is it 10 years ago now?
15.
15 years ago, sorry. He also has a couple other businesses and foundations that he has that we're going to talk about tonight. Anyway, without further ado, Tariq Farid. And we are going to open up some questions a little later on. So please, anything you think of, Tariq is ready to answer anything you throw his way. So what I want to know is that, first of all, I heard that you bought a flower shop and that's how you started Edible Arrangements. Why a flower shop? What got you into arrangements, whether flowers or fruit? How did that concept come about?
My grandfather actually used to say something when we were young, and my father used to kind of repeat it in the house. He would say that not much English was spoken, and this is back in Pakistan when we were young, that necessity is the mother of invention. And I never really understood that until we got into things. And the reason I got into the flower shop was that my father saw an ad in the paper for a shop for sale, but he kind of misread the ad. It said shop equipment for sale, but he thought it was a shop. He didn't look at for $6,000. And I used to work at a flower shop, Faracelli's in West Haven on Forest Road. And he somehow thought that because I worked at a flower shop watering plants, that I can run a flower shop. And our family actually, it was pretty hand to mouth back then. And my father was very, very proud and still is very proud. He would never take food stamps or anything. He would never take anything. You had to work. Everybody worked. And he said that it's $6,000. He borrowed money from a friend, and that's the brave person who gave him that money. He said, my 17-year-old wants to buy a flower shop. And I was in high school, and he saw the ad, and we went and we bought the shop. And had no idea what to do when we got there the first day, and just kind of learned it.
So 17 years old.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, we had a 17-year-old girl who's actually, her parents and her sister are here today. She started up a company. She was here out of HUBCAP working. So at 17 years old, what kind of challenges is someone like that facing, especially in high school? Now you're in high school, you're trying to start a flower shop. Well, you didn't even know you were starting a flower shop at the time. What challenges did you have to face?
I don't think you're smart enough at that point to know that things are challenges, right? So you open it up, and then you realize that you have to pay rent. The first week we opened, we used to do about $70 a day in sales. So we started opening 7 days a week to figure out that, hey, this is pretty good. And when you're 17, that's a lot of money. I used to get paid at the flower shop. I used to get paid about $25 a week. So I thought this was amazing. Then the rent payments came. You have to make a rent payment, and so you learn real quickly that you actually have to make a profit and all those things. But the nice thing is, back then you're not worried about money. You're not thinking this is how much I get paid and this is the thing. You're just working hard and you're enjoying it. I've never been afraid. Before that, I had worked at McDonald's before I worked at the flower shop, and just somehow my parents did a great job. My mother was probably the key person in this, did a great job of just teaching us how to work hard. So you just worked hard, we worked hard. And sometimes your car would break down, and we do deliveries on a bicycle. So you would go pull up to somebody's house with a box of roses in your bag, and you're pulling up to their house on your bike, and you're dropping off, and they're looking at you like, you're a delivery boy? It says, yes. And Thompson Street, you had a couple of miles you went, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. So I don't think there were any challenges. I just think that you're young enough and you're careless enough to get through everything. So I encourage. I probably will get my boys by the time they're 15 or 16 into some businesses, and I think it was the best part was that we were 17.
How did that impact your social life? Did you have a social life?
Well, when you're a 17-year-old in 80s, going to high school and have a flower shop, you better not hope for a social life. So you're not going to have much of a social life. And I went to West Haven High. So but by the time I was 18, I drove a nice sports car, because I could afford to buy one. And the social life really improved really quickly. So a red sports car will take you very far.
What would you say the difference is between now and 30 years ago opening a business, but specifically here in Connecticut? a local business?
I think there are two challenges. I think parents have changed. I don't think we think that 17 or 16 years old are responsible enough to be able to do things. We were 10 or 12 and we had paper routes, and we went and worked part-time. We'd go ride bicycles on the side of major highways. We do a lot of things that these days parents would probably get in trouble for. So I think that part has changed. Maybe there was more need at that point, and people actually, the kids were busier and helping a lot more in the house. Your parents shared a lot more with you the challenges of the house. They shared with you how, I knew how much my father made. My father made $8 an hour. His raise, he would get a 25-cent raise, and when he got the full 25 cent, he would be ecstatic. And if he only got 12 cents out of the 25, and I don't know how he made things happen at $8 an hour and a 25-cent raise. That's what he would get at the factory that he worked at. So I think that characteristic has changed. So that's so I see my nieces and nephews and a lot of the younger kids that I meet. They don't have the experiences that we had, and kind of some of the brave things we did, and how you helped in the family. So that's one. The challenges, there were challenges. When I opened up the first flower shop 3 years later, I wanted to grow to a second one, but the bank wouldn't give me a loan. For me, it was the best thing that ever happened that the bank didn't give a loan. But those are the challenges now. People do look at experience. They spend a lot of time on that. They want to put you through a ringer. You don't have experience. You can't put together business plans. So it is a little difficult. And I think an 18-year-old, if the responsibility is given to an 18-year-old, will be very, very responsible. If you have to do some of the things that I did back then, but you get a nice head start. I have a lot of friends that back then thought I was crazy because I was working all the time. Now I wish that they had listened to some of the things that I was telling them to do, to open up a shop, go do this, go do that. So there are a lot more challenges, but I see the biggest challenge as being parents. I think we as parents have changed a lot. And we need to bring that back a little bit. It's difficult. Even I find it in myself that sometimes you want to tell your 18-year-old or 19-year-old daughter, no, honey, you don't have to do that. Just pay attention to college. You don't have to get a job. So I kind of have to force myself to, no, go get a part-time job, then plus go to college. It's good experience. So I was talking to her about that today. She's just starting college. I said, what are you doing part-time? And go get a job. Go work at the mall. Go do something. And she'll say to me, I don't need to. I said, no, you do need to. So it is different.
So another thing that I've learned about Tariq is that you had to write some proprietary software for your business. And something intriguing to me is, one, how did you do it? And what did you do with that software?
I always loved computers. My father, I don't know how he afforded it. I have to give him credit, and I still give him credit. He bought me a Commodore 64 computer back in see this? We're aging ourselves here. So back in, I think, 83 or 84. Is it 83? 83, 84 with a cassette player is what it recorded everything on. And I wasn't a programmer. I started to write scripts on it, just write scripts and everything. But what it did was it made me very comfortable with computers. And when I did the flower shop, by the time we got around to 88, there was no computer software in the floral industry. So went around and found a company that was dabbling with the computer software, took the whole Northeast as their territory, and started to install and service computers. So I went from the flower business in 89. By the time 93 came around, I was 100% in the computer industry, and we were installing computer systems for Teleflora, FTD, flower shops, Wallingford Flower Shop for Sal, actually one of my clients here that I installed a flower shop at. And the challenge was, you're 19-some-year-old or 20-year-old, and you're going into somebody's place and you're telling them they'll install a computer system for you. And first they're like, huh? How are you going to do that? But I understood the floral industry. I understood how it worked. So we didn't really install a computer system. We told you how to manage your business using a computer. And that was the best thing I ever did. Within 5 years, we were printing money. We could not support it. We would have customers calling us and yelling that, why aren't you installing my computer system fast enough? So we had a really good problem. So I got into it, one, that it worked immediately. As soon as I did it, people wanted to buy the computer. Having the floral background helped in trying to tell them how to manage their businesses. It was very much relationships. And I enjoyed it. And most of my clients were from Washington, D.C. all the way up to Maine, so I got to travel a lot. And again, it was the same thing. I started it with about $100. Bought some wires, started wiring, and went into a shop. And I'll share a great story with you. We are successful because of the kindnesses of people, along the way. And I've always been blessed. From the first time I bought flowers, I didn't know what temperature is to be set on a cooler. So we bought the flower shop, we fire everything up, I go into this cooler, and the florist had bought the wrong cooler, I didn't know, and it had a temperature from 1 to 10. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it like, what temperature should I set? So I'm thinking I want the flowers to be really fresh. I had no idea what temperature flowers should be stored at. So I put the cooler at 1. But putting it at 1 was freezing. I bought from Parati's in New Haven, bought flowers from from the father, bought the flowers. I went in and he's asking me, I said, I'm just opening a flower shop. And he's giving me advice on what flowers to carry, what people buy right now. And I go and I set the temperature, and right before Easter, I opened it right before Easter. I put the flowers in, I come in the next morning, everything is frozen, and I'm trying to revive all the flowers. And I go back to his shop and I say, I froze the flowers. First he laughed for about 10 minutes. And then I didn't have any money, and I said, I need to buy more flowers, and just give me this or give me that. He goes, why are you only buying 2? I said, I don't have any money. And he goes, buy whatever you need. Just take whatever you need and pay me whenever you can. And that was kind of the turning moment, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have been able to make rent or anything like that. So it's the kindness of Mr. Parati. I started my computer company, show up at a flower shop at Wicks Flowers in Baldwin, New York. Paul Muldoon is his name. First client, I walk in and he sees that I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to computers. And he's like, okay, I want this, I want that. But I knew about the business. I said, well, you need these stations. I did everything. At the end, he goes, give me a price, kid. I'm ready. I want to order the system. Right there. I just gave him a quote. So I'm now trying to figure it out. And the price is coming out to like $13,000. He wanted like 10 stations. And I'm thinking, this is a lot of money. So I go up to him. I said, it's, Paul, it's like $13,000. He goes, that's it? And I said, what do you mean that's it? He goes, well, it should be more. I was thinking more like 16, 17. I said, no, for 13 I could do it. And he goes, well, you probably need money to buy computers. I said, yeah, but it's okay. How could you trust? He goes, I trust you. I'm going to give you a check for $10,000. And I actually went out to my car and cried. Because what an amazing thing to meet a person that does that. And then he would call me every few months and say, hey, come on down. I need another computer. And so it's really those things and that may make you what it is, and you remember, and then you pass it on. You make sure you do that as these things come. So it's when you get experiences like that, you're going to be successful. You're going to do well because so many people are looking out for you.
So it sounds like necessity and community, or the aid of others, was integral in you starting those 2 businesses. So now let's fast forward to Edible Arrangements a little bit. How do we take the flower business, this budding computer business, and how do we come up with Edible Arrangements?
Well, I had left the computer business by then. A company bought us out. I got out at the wrong time. So I learned a best lesson in life: never get out from a computer industry in 1997. Wait, till everything took off. So I got out of it because I was traveling a lot. So I got out of that. Went back into the flower business, opened up a flower shop in Hamden, Connecticut. Thought I would grow the flower shops and everything, but they really weren't going anywhere. For kind of the dream I had, I wanted to open a chain of them and everything. And saw the fruit concept and everything and started to play with it in 1997, 98. Most of the people that I showed it to told me it's not going to work. I have this, I was taught this great tradition by my mom of always asking people for advice. And she used to say this great thing. She used to say that water flows downhill. And so if you want to get benefit from someone, you have to lower yourself to them. So if you see somebody of knowledge, lower yourself in front of them, watch their knowledge flow down to you. Never be arrogant. Don't say, I'm doing this, what do you think? Say, I don't know if this is going to work, and I wanted to find out what you think. So do it in such a way that they kind of give you an opinion, say, I don't think it's going to work, and they'll try to help you. So I started to go out and get advice from people, and most people told me, bank didn't give me a loan. They said, well, fruit in baskets. And they're probably right. So at that time. So it didn't give me a loan. Then I went to a couple of family friends who were professors and who taught and everything and in business, and they told me, no, it's not going to work. Why isn't FTD doing it? How could it be that good? FTD isn't doing it. Teleflora isn't doing it. Then I made an arrangement. I took it home. And my mom was a brilliant entrepreneur, like an amazing one. She saw it and she goes, what is that? And I said, well, I opened it up. She goes, oh, that's going to be big. That's what she said. And I never forgot that after that, it ended up being really big. And she had a good instinct. And then her rule was that you have to work hard. That there's a natural test in business. The test is to work hard. So we started to do it, never really thought it would get this big. We're in East Haven, Connecticut on the corner of Main and Hemingway in a 600 square foot store. Every bank denied you, everybody denied you. And then somebody walks in and says, I want to buy one of these for Boston. I want to open a store in Boston, Chris Delamargio. And he came to visit someone and saw the arrangement. And then we drove over to Boston, opened up the second store. And after that, it was all history. I did an Inc. magazine article that said, how many in 5 years? And I said 35 in 5 years. But I tend to be very systematic, and everything has to be systematic. We opened up 500 in 5 years. So, but it was just that part of just keeping focused on making sure every one of them was successful. So we never, ever dreamed it would be at this level. I think we celebrated our 500th opening on our 700th opening, because we were just so busy on the road and everything trying to make the store successful.
So you went from a 4-location flower shop to a 500 location edible arrangements in 5 years now. And so are there differences between owning and running 4 flower shops and owning and running 500 businesses or over 500 business franchise?
I think most people hold themselves back. I think we think there are challenges, that it's going to be more difficult. It actually becomes easier. And what you do at 500 is no different. I mean, the things I deal with now, at times I wish I don't have to deal with. The organization's gotten so big that a lot of times there's nothing creative going on. You're going from one lawyer's call to another lawyer's call to going into court to doing that. But that when you get that opportunity of, building the next arrangement or figuring out the next city and figuring out the next concept, it's really exciting. So I always felt that it was easier as long as you're systematic. So I built my first shop, and somebody asked me they want to open a store in Boston, and I was opening my second one because everybody told me that you really got to put something in Fairfield County because edible arrangement is more of a Fairfield County thing, not an East Haven, Connecticut thing. I said, really? I said, I do really well, and I made a lot of money in East Haven. Yeah, no, I mean, Fairfield County is where you got to go. So I spent all this money opening a store in Fairfield County. It was a disaster, because it was really an East Haven thing. It was really the blue-collar worker thing. It was really the guy, the guy who wants to take something home for his wife or they celebrate a lot more. They get in trouble a lot more, so they need a lot of chocolate-covered strawberries. So at Fairfield County, it was a lot of parties and things like that. So, but when I did the second store, I called Michael Syed. I said, hey, Michael Syed is a consultant in franchising. He lived in West Hartford. I picked up the phone, looked in the yellow pages, found him. I said, I'm thinking about doing this. And he said, well, what you want to do is build it and learn everything about it. So I told the Boston franchisee, give me a little time. And when I opened the East Haven store, the Norwalk store, I documented everything. Like, what's the width of the space I need? What's the square footage? How long did it take me to put the counters in? How long did it take to get the lease? How much did it cost with the lawyers? Everything we documented and turned it into what's called a new store kit. And so when the Boston store happened, I gave him the new store kit and said, here's how you do it, A to Z of how you open a store. So he went and started to do that. When the third franchisee came, I just gave him the kit again. And then after a while, we automated it. And so it actually became easier. And why it becomes easier is you can hire a lot of people. When you make a lot of money, you can hire a lot of people. So when you own 5 or 6 or 7 stores, you can hire a lot of people. When you own 5 or 7, you can hire some really smart people that are a lot smarter than you. And you can pay them a lot of money that you never even pay yourself. You wouldn't pay the type of salary to yourself that you'll pay some of these people because you can afford to do it. And when you do that, they go to bat for you, then you become the idea person and you become the person who inspires them, who sets the goals, who sets these things. And they're the ones who build the 30, 40, 50 stores and go on the road for you. And then you're usually just awed to say, wow, here's my idea. This is what people are doing. And then you're able to, we have 150 some odd people working for us, total of maybe 240, 250 in about 4 countries. So it's a dream, so you think of a software, people put it together. You think of a concept, people put it together. So it affords you a lot of luxury. So I against what everybody says, I think the bigger you get, the easier it gets.
Why the franchise model over a company-owned store model?
No one wanted to give me money. So franchise model, 2 reasons. Number one, I couldn't get money in the beginning. I needed a lot of financing to open the stores. No one wanted to give the money. But the franchise model, because I felt there has to be an owner in each community. We're a very community-based type of a business where we celebrate people's occasions. People come into us and they tell us about what they want to do. So the managers can't do that, because when we did the Fairfield County store, we had managers there and they just didn't do well. They wouldn't get into the community, they wouldn't understand the community, they wouldn't understand the customer. It was just a job where an owner wants to make the store very successful. So it's one of the best things we ever did, where we went franchising. Even though later on people started to give us a lot of money and said you should open corporate stores, even now people were encouraged that we do corporate stores, and a lot of investors will come and say, we'll make $100 million available, go open a lot of stores. But I don't think we'll be as successful as we are now with the franchise, with the franchise model.
Is it because of ease of ownership that other franchisees wanted to buy in, or was it because of the product?
I think first the product attracts people. And then the second, that they want to be entrepreneurs, that they want to open a business. And they look at it and say, hey, if you can do it, I think I can do that. And I think it's those two. And knowing and seeing the success stories of what other franchisees have done, they'll follow into the model and everything. But it's really, for us, it's really been the product. We open it up in California. The model in franchising always is that you start and you grow out. You never spread yourself out all over the place. I went totally against the model. So if somebody came to me from California, I would open the store there, where all the consultants told me, no, don't do that. The reason being that when you grow out, if you have a lot of money and you're investing a lot, we had no money to market or anything. So we knew that as soon as we put our product in California, people are going to start asking about it and the word's going to spread. So we put it in Northridge, California. Next thing you know, all people are calling us from California, and then California starts to grow. We put it in New Jersey starts to grow. So we kind of went against the norm, and our product is really what put us on the map at every level.
Well, that's good. I wanted to know, what is it about fruit arrangements that attracts people? Or what is it? Why do you think people even want to buy fruit arrangements?
I think people want to gift and people want to celebrate, right? And we really did it at the right time. In the 80s, why I felt the fruit business would do really well is because you would hear from the customers in the flower business that it dies, that, oh, I'm paying a lot of money. So there was always that perception. The second, there was this whole healthy trend. So we did a lot of chocolate or those pyramid baskets, and people would always sit there and say, I know that's not healthy. I shouldn't really be sending it. She's really not going to eat that, but I have to send something. Or I know they're not going to eat that. So when we did the fruit, we knew that won't be a concern anymore. And even businesses wanted to send something shareable. They want to send something that people can enjoy instead of just flowers. So I think those 3 stars were aligned. That whole trend towards value. I want something for my value. I'm paying $50. I want something that people can enjoy. Second, the healthy trend, even though we put chocolate on the fruit and everything. And then the third thing was the overall, the part about the whole healthy trend that was spreading everywhere in the country of being healthy, eating more fruit and all that stuff. So we've enjoyed a little bit of each of those. And it's unique, it's different, and people want to send things different. And to my surprise, it still continues to be. We have about 85% brand awareness. And it's our franchisees. Look, we opened up Main Street stores. It's not corporate, it's not some company. When you go to Mississippi or North Haven or any town, you meet a local owner who is vested in that community, and they're the ones growing, and so people see that and that works and everything. And the franchisees have always made us where we are.
Because most of us are from Connecticut, with the exception of a few from New York here, what lessons do you have for them as being a Connecticut business owner, starting and running your business in Connecticut, considering franchising? What can you tell us about it?
I think when you start a business, it's more you than the environment. I truly believe that. But when the business gets to a certain size, then the concerns of the state apply. The labor pool, the training, kind of how many people are moving into that or are moving out of that state, and what people look at. So we face that challenge now. But when we were growing, I don't know any different. I always lived in Connecticut, always loved Connecticut. So I wouldn't know any different if somebody told me, why didn't you do Ohio, or why didn't you do Texas, or why didn't you open up in Minnesota or Minneapolis, where a lot of franchise companies congregate? Why not New York? Well, because we were from Connecticut. We grew up here. I grew up in West Haven, lived in North Haven. So of course you're always going to do business here. So it's quite interesting. We're at the size now that you start to look at that. You start to look at what's easier, and where there are tax benefits. Where the biggest factor, I think, the biggest challenge at the size we are now is probably the labor pool. Attracting talent, and being in between New York and Boston is tough. A lot of people either want to live in New York or they want to live in Boston. So attracting people, we've been lucky enough to keep attracting talent, and we're getting big enough now that we can, similar to what Subway does. But when you're starting a business, and when your business is at a smaller size, I don't think it's an issue at all where you are. I think it's what you do, and what the culture you create, or the environment you create, and some of the things that you're doing for the staff. It really, you have to look at that more than looking at, I'm opening this business. I did that. I opened my second store in Fairfield County because everybody told me that's where Edible is going to be successful. Our store in Waterbury did more business than our store in Fairfield County. And that was like against what everybody told you. Waterbury, why are you opening a store in Waterbury? Well, because we're in New Haven and tons of people call us from Waterbury, and we're sending a van there every week. So, and next thing you know, we opened up in Waterbury. It was our #1 store for the longest time, Waterbury, Connecticut. So it's so we've always kind of gone, I'll go to New Jersey and somebody asks me, where should I open? Newark. Why Newark? Well, because there's tons of people there. That's why. Let's open in New York, and it always worked. Let's open one in Elizabeth. So it's just, it's that quantity of people and everything. So sometimes following those instincts works really good. So Connecticut has always worked well for us.
I know, speaking from my own personal experience, I want to be a multinational CEO, much like yourself, if that ever happens. What are the responsibilities you have day to day now?
Oh, God.
It's clearly changed from when you were running the store and setting the refrigerator and whatnot. How does that change?
I think you go from managing processes and managing the business to managing people. So the sooner you can make that transition to managing your management team, not your overall people, the more successful and the sooner you will get there, because it's really developing the people who are going to go manage their people and kind of grow the organization. And that probably was the hardest part for me. I love touching stuff. I love making an arrangement. I love going in and straightening out the office. I love butting into people's businesses and everything like that, and people don't like that. So I had to train myself to say, no, let me go sit with the manager and kind of explain that this is what I see wrong and this is what needs to improve. And so it's that transition. And then you have to deal with a lot of stuff that is not enjoyable, and the sooner you can turn around and start to enjoy it, the sooner you'll be successful. And just know that it comes with the territory. The first lawsuit we ever got served, Hugh Keefe was my attorney, and I had never gotten served with a lawsuit. And I lost sleep for 3 days. I show up at his office, I'm in bad shape. He goes, "What's wrong?" I said, I'm like so nervous about this. He goes, "Why? You really think you're gonna get to 300 stores and get to this size and not get served with a lawsuit? Get over it. This is just the first of them. It's gonna happen a lot. And you're gonna get this, you're gonna get that." So it took a while, and then you start to realize this just comes with the territory, and you learn to manage it. Somebody calls you and says, somebody slipped at one of your stores or ate something at your store and they got sick from it. you can't hide. The approach is that you get aggressive. So what you do is you go in the exact opposite direction. The sooner you can get comfortable with that, you'll be successful. I used to have this rule when I opened my stores that whatever your weakness is, that is going to be your demise. If you don't like doing marketing, that's what's going to make your business fail. If you don't like doing accounting, that's what's going to make your business fail. If you don't like customer interaction, that's what's going to make your business fail. So I would train franchisees and find out that what don't they like doing. So we have franchisees that never wanted to go in the front of their store because they really didn't like interacting with people. So I would say, that's what's going to make you fail. And I would spend 2 weeks with them trying to get them to get to the front of their store. And if I didn't like accounting, or if somebody didn't like accounting, I would teach them accounting, say, you have to learn accounting, that's what's going to make you fail. So I think that's, it's really that. I spend a lot of my time in areas that I may not be comfortable in, but you have to watch those. If you don't watch those, it's going to be the demise and everything. So I will take whatever no one else wants. So if I know that we are losing an executive in a certain area of the business, I'll take that over and I'll run that for a certain amount of time until I find somebody else. So it's not as fun as it used to be, but I get paid a lot of money, so it's not about fun anymore. So I have to do it,
right.
And I have to lead by example. So,
what's your passion? What makes you wake up every day and want to go to?
I love building businesses. I love. It's going to sound corny. I love creating jobs. I love hiring people, I'm constantly thinking of opening a business. Constantly thinking to. My wife's dismay and everything, I'm always trying to stay busy. I love that, and I'm never worried about the risk of it. I think opportunity is something you take advantage of. Risk is something you mitigate. So once you take advantage of it, there's going to be some risk, and you figure out how to get through that risk, and that's how you get where it is, where you are and everything. So just opening businesses and handing off to the next generation a business that's very healthy, that they take to a whole new level. I love this tradition of all these families, the DuPonts and all these families that built these amazing businesses, and then the next generation takes it over, they take it to the next level. So, I love building businesses.
So let's switch gears a little bit. You love businesses, you clearly love people. Let's talk about your charitable foundation, the Tariq Farid Foundation. What led you to start that? I know that you do a lot locally, but you also opened a hospital in Pakistan in your mother's hometown. So tell us a little bit about the mission there.
My grandfather had this, and my mother had this great tradition that you have to give back into the community. A lot of these charitable foundations that we did, when I bought my first building, I took a loan from my mother. And when I went to pay her the loan back, she didn't take it back. She says, no, do something, and she was very ill at that time, and she passed away a few years later. She said, do something and build something in my memory. So we built a hospital. So I think really she planted that seed. And we always had a tradition of that you have to give back and everything. And what's very important to me is, you make a lot of money, and I don't think that making the money gives you the joy. The real joy is when you do something with that money, right? I like building businesses, so I can take that money, redeploy it, build businesses. And we went and we were at this convention this year, and the franchisees, we had probably about half of our franchise body there, and somebody asked me, like, how many jobs have you guys created? And we created close to 10,000 jobs. So when you look at that this idea that started out in East Haven, Connecticut, that now we have about 10,000 people working in our organization, that's pretty amazing. And so then, religiously, there's a tradition that we have to give certain amount of our profits and certain amount of our money in charity. So there's a religious requirement. Above and beyond that, you want to teach that and pass that on to your kids. And I think kids, I love that analogy of that as soon as a prince is born, that he's being trained to be a king. So they don't naturally become kings. The king starts to train him. And so I think my next generation, I have to train them. And my mother did a great job of training us. She would send us off to the neighbors. Whenever she would make anything, sweet dishes, we'd go off to the neighbors to drop off the plates at 5 neighbors. And whenever something happened, whenever something happened in the community, you go off and you go check up on people and everything. And she didn't have money, but luckily, we're blessed enough to have money that you want to send that tradition. So, Bill and Melinda Gates have done an amazing job of some of the things they're doing. So you want to follow in that tradition, but you don't want that to die with you. So you set up organizations, you set up structure to say, we work very hard in our businesses, and that brings us money, but then we should work just as hard in helping the community and working, but there you need to spend time. And it should run just the way your business is run and everything. So we're trying to do that, and I hope one day those will be as big as some of the organizations we have here. And what a, I don't think this tradition is as strong anywhere in the world the way it is in America. I love this when you go to the Rockefeller Center and the family, built these museums and built these things. So we've got big shoes to fill. So I think, you have to, a healthy community, you have to give back to the community, you have to do it. And I don't do as much as I really need to do compared to the blessings that we've gotten from the community.
Before we open up some questions to everyone, if there's one piece of advice for anybody starting a business, thinking about starting a business, already in a business, what would that be?
My theory on anyone thinking about starting a business is really simple. You start a business for two reasons. You only should start a business for two reasons. Number one is skill, and number two is ability. One, you have a skill that you should apply into business, and it's going to work. You're an architect, and you're a really, really good architect, and you always want to be an entrepreneur. Open your business. And then ability is that you have the ability and tolerance, ability to go and work late, ability to go and keep banging against the wall so long that the wall, collapses, ability to decipher between a good decision. I always say that no one has any business being in bad business. That you should not get into business just because you think it will work. I think you have to vet that out. And the way you vet that out is go ask people, especially the ones who have failed in business. Go ask them to say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. They'll tell you what they did wrong. I didn't have enough money. I didn't do this and do that. And other than that, just do it. I mean, I hate to, steal Nike's, logo here or the tagline, but you just have to do it. And no consultant could tell you what you need to do. You will do it your own way a little bit. And then at the end of it, I think most people don't stick up. My mother used to say that, this analogy she learned growing up, where just when you get to the tail, that if you're chasing something and just when you get to the tail, you give up. And so she would always say to me, don't ever quit just when you get to the tail. So, you're about to catch something and you quit. Most people quit just when they get to the tail. So you go through all the hardship and everything, and people will give up. I don't think, once you made that determination, never give up. When 2008 came around, most of my people told me that, hey, it's fruit business, it's not going to work. You should maybe sell, and there are people that offered us a lot of money to sell the company. But I had seen it in 2001 when we started, and we had gone through the downturn. And our best years, I stuck it out, our best years were 2008, 2009, 2010. Best years ever, because people went towards value. They wanted, instead of sending flowers, they wanted to send something of value. And next thing you know, it was best year. We had double-digit growth. I really think it's simple. Once a person makes a determination, go ask people. Go sit in the shadows of some people, ask them advice, nudge them, ask them advice in such a way to say, I'm doing this, and pour your heart out that this is everything, I'm going to invest into this. If they tell you don't do it, go think of something else, and ask others if you need to. But if they tell you run with it, sounds really good, run with it, but you're going to really make it successful. So the advice is just to do it. And the best years were when any time I've ever had people or myself have spent time thinking about a business too long, I always think my way out of it. You start thinking of all the scenarios why you shouldn't do it. Well, this may not work. Maybe it's not the right time. Oh, well, the economy, this week the stock market went down. Oh, this week that. But when you just go do it, then you go work to make it successful, and you're going to have bad days. And never, ever curse your business. A lot of people will turn around and say, no, my business, it sucks. No, that thing you're doing today in business sucks. You had to fire someone. That sucks. Somebody broke your window. That sucks. Your business doesn't suck. Because otherwise you should turn around and all the good days you say, oh, my business is great. So you should kind of do that too. But people will turn around and sometimes define the business by those few bad moments. You shouldn't. Other than that, it's just hard work and persistence and patience.
Well, thank you for answering my questions or our questions.
My pleasure.
But Brian.
14 countries, I believe, so far, medical arrangements, is it? So I want to ask you this question. Why did you pick the countries that you've picked so far? Because looking through the country list, you've got some very obvious ones, and then you've got some not so obvious ones. So can you tell us a little bit of the rationale as to why those countries were picked, and what's unique, if anything, about those countries, about how you have to source things?
So, there is that CEO intelligent answer, and there is the real answer. I'll give you the real one. The intelligent is to turn us, well, we did a lot of research, and research told us that the determination of the population and no. Somebody came onto our business, called up on the phone and says, hi, I'm in Dubai. I love edible arrangements. I want to build a store in Dubai. We turned around and said, well, give us about a week. We did our research and said, okay, you have to import everything. It's going to cost a lot of money. You probably won't make money for 3 or 5 years. Oh, by the way, it's going to cost you $500,000 to get this thing off the ground. Then you get quiet, and the person says, okay, I'm ready. Then you say, okay, let's do it. So I've made mistakes. We opened up in England and we shut our operation down because the franchisee wasn't ready and the economy kind of crashed. So we will do our job, but mostly I rely more on the masters that buy the country from us. They do the research, they do everything, because at the end they're investing their money. We never sell any countries. We will not go out and market any country and try to sell it to anyone, because I think the success of that country is dependent on the person who's investing, not me, because my people probably won't even know what happens in the country, or what we need to do. So the most successful countries are the ones where we found the best partners who knew the market, who knew and then came here, got trained, and then went back. And then they'll come back and, like what happened in Dubai or the Middle East, hey, dates are really popular. What can we do? We said, okay, send us tons of dates. So we dipped dates, we stuffed dates, we did skewer of dates, and we turned on and made arrangements with dates and sent them pictures. Say, here's what you could do. And that's kind of the support we do. I was in Dubai right now because we're opening up a warehouse with one of the masters. So it's really the magic of those people that make us successful. China is something I knew that would be really big that we need to get into. But it's a really tough market to get into. There, we spent a lot of time finding the right partner. We did a lot of homework there. We were already sourcing things from China. We have a company that we import everything that we opened up back in 2001. And ended up finding the right partner, and they're just doing amazing. But it's more they choose us than us choosing them.
But what happens when the country turns into like a conflict country? I'm going to bring into the conversation now Russia. Russia is one of your countries. Now obviously it's got its ongoing situation.
Oh, we're not in Russia. No. We were going to go in Russia, and then we backed out of it because of the conflict.
And is that because it's the whole brand thing as well? Obviously, apart from what's going on in the country.
For me, it's more the thing that this person is about to, like Egypt. About 4 years ago, a very strong party came to us and says, we want to do stores in Egypt. And we were hearing little issues in Egypt. You always heard issues, and I have a lot of friends from Egypt. So you pick up the phone and like, yeah, something's going to happen. Why? Because Hosni Mubarak is getting to a certain age and all that other stuff. So we told him, look, you're going to invest a lot of money. You're going to spend like $1 million trying to get into that market. And if the market gets unstable, you're going to lose a lot of money. Fine, our brand will get tarnished to say, hey, you shut down in Egypt, but you're going to lose money, and at the end of it, it's not going to be helpful for us, and we won't be able to support it or anything. So we never ended up doing Egypt, and what a great call. Libya, same exact thing. We had a party come from Libya. Libya is it. It's the next future. They showed us plans. We looked at it, and it looked really good. But we said, we're not comfortable right now. I mean, my family's from Pakistan. Most people ask me, why haven't you opened stores in Pakistan? I said, well, my family's from Pakistan. I know Pakistan. So that's why, because it's Pakistan. So, but I have other operations. My father's there. We have other businesses there. So it's more the investment of that franchisee, because if they're not successful, then somebody else is going to look at it and say, so-and-so failed. No one remembers the 99 success stories. They only remember that one failure. So they won't sit there and say, oh, they had 99 stores that successfully opened, but everybody asks you, what happened with that one? So for that reason, we've been lucky in a lot of the markets. On the other markets, we're in Saudi Arabia, we're in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and some of those. We're in India, we're struggling in India. We're really struggling in India. We're looking for the right party in India right now. We're doing amazing in China. We're doing amazing in Saudi Arabia and some of these countries where, there's a lot of income and people have a lot of money. They spend a lot of money. So other than that, it's mostly been and people choose us, and then we've been very, very lucky to stay out of other markets and to be able to be brave enough to say, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to do it, and have the luxury to say that, which is pretty good. I don't let my salespeople, international I handle. I don't let my salespeople sell international. I actually sell international.
What do you think nobody's ever emulated or tried to challenge you? Because, I mean, like frozen yogurt was a big thing. It seems to be having a bit of a resurgence. And then suddenly they die away because obviously, there's stronger competition. There doesn't seem to be anybody that I can think of immediately that is like an edible arrangements challenger. So why do you think nobody's really tried to challenge you?
Well, don't jinx me first, so that's the one. So let's keep it going. I think people see it from the outside as a lot that it's easy. It's really not easy. Our business is not easy. We source a skewer. Why? For safety reason. We used to use bamboo skewers, and that's an accident waiting to happen. So we had to turn around and find skewers that collapse and things like that. The containers we source, they have to be food safe. Because there's actually food in it. So a lot of people, we have competitors that do it now, and we actually have to call that competitor out. We'll have a small shop somewhere, start making arrangements. We have to call them out to say that basket that you're using, that's a floral basket. That paint has lead in it. You can't do that. It's actually not healthy. So there's a lot more that goes into it. And we were lucky enough that we were the first ones doing it. And every time we had to source the product, we actually went and sourced it from China, and we set up a company that did that. So we own the sourcing mark, so it's not like we built some other companies that source the product. So we can contain it that way. There's proprietary things. When we are doing double dipping and we're doing the skewer, we have a patent for 20 years on the skewer, so no one can really do a fruit skewer. So there's other things. But it's hard. Many people have tried. It's really, really hard. And I think we've gone through those stages where the company's gotten to a level now that those growing pains that people have to go through and those money losing days that people have to, a lot of our franchisees have struggled for the first 1 or 2 years. Every business struggles in the first 2 years. But you're part of a larger company that at least you see others are successful and that it's going to work. So I just think it's that, and then probably luck has a little to do with it too. So I guess, there's a little bit of luck.
Sound fun.
When you're about to develop a new product or a new line, and you want to get it out, you want to get it to the store there, how do you decide or make the decision as to whether or not you think it's going to work or not? How do you get that?
Well, how I decide and how my company decide are two different things right now. So I am still that, that type of, where we'll look at something, and if it feels good, and if you see it, this whole to wow you came up because it was December, middle of December, right before Christmas in East Haven, Connecticut, first holiday, people would walk into the shop and say, well, it's the middle of winter, you're putting fruit in these baskets, how is this actually how do I know it's going to be good? So I would turn around and because I had customers say it, I would put the arrangement in front of customers, and people say, wow, whoa, that's nice. So I turned around and came up with this slogan that says, it will wow the person who receives it, otherwise I'll give you your money back. So we have that model that follows all the way through now. We're about to launch a yogurt line, talking about yogurt, because it's been so overplayed. But when we do it, we'll do it in such a way that it'll be a wow. So for me, the thing was that my own people, when they make something, they should look at it and say, wow, no, that's good. Wow. So I think that part tells you you're onto the right thing. As long as you're not convincing yourself. A lot of times you'll convince yourself, I think this is going to work. And then when they say that, I say, no. If you think this is going to work, it probably isn't going to. So now the nice thing is that through social media, my company, they'll end up putting in front of 5,000 customers, get the customers to give feedback and even put price ranges. It's pretty amazing what they can do now, where we would turn around and kind of make it and then just pray. You knew it would work and you loved it, but most times when that feeling is good, the customers will love it too. So there's half of that. So for me, that's very important. When every month we sit down and all the new ideas are put up on we eat a lot of fruit that day. We eat a lot of chocolate covered strawberries. We sample a lot of things, and then we'll go through and say, okay, those are all wows. No brainer on those. Let's move those. These, I don't know. Let's test these. So then they'll test those and everything, but then we'll test the other ones as well. So I think you just develop this intuition, whatever you want to call it, where people get excited. And when people get excited about something, they make it successful. You know, when they like it, they make it successful. We had launched this cupcake arrangement, and it was one of our most popular arrangements we ever launched. The reason being that most of the 18 to 20-year-olds, 24-year-olds that work in our stores, they loved cupcakes. So when you walk in there, oh, you got to see our cupcake arrangement. You know, they just made it so popular that it was popular with the customers. You know, so there's a lot of that when people, you know, buy into it, they make it popular.
Not at the international, but in the States, when you have somebody that's running, let's say, an area like Newark, do you as from the corporate decide the placement of those stores in the cities, or do you let them do it, or do you work together? How does that work?
Well, in the beginning, we let the franchisees do it. Now we pretty much have mapped out the whole country. So we know in the U.S., the biggest growth for us is U.S. I mean, the international is a nice icing on the cake, but it's really the U.S. is the market. I mean, if anybody came to me and said, you know, I'm thinking about doing this concept, where should I go? U.S. You don't go anywhere. I mean, most of those countries are a liability unless you get to be a big organization and you can absorb that. It's a nice, you know, it's kind of a nice stripe on your jacket to turn and say, oh, you're in that country. You know, a lot of those you lose money because what you spend on an international travel and stay in a hotel is what you get in royalties. So we've mapped out the whole U.S. You know, we have a lot of data people here. It's amazing. We have 15 years of data, customer, recipient, what they sent, where are they, what's our ideal customer. They'll take that, they'll study that data, and they'll map out where the stores are, and then they'll project it out for the next 10 years. So it's that slow, steady growth of 100 stores a year for the next 10 years.
Okay.
When the internet and the World Wide Web really took off, how quickly did Edible respond to that technological shift? And would you say that's when expansion really started to happen for Edible?
I owned an IT company. The magic for me really was this IT company. You know, I was so comfortable in IT that before we opened stores, we had a website. So we deliver about 60% of our traffic, about 55 to 60% of our traffic to our stores through our website. So the website is a tool for them. So about 55% of our people go to our website, place an order, and the order shows up at the store. So it's been key. The technology has been key, and the website has been a key from the beginning. And that probably was the magical thing that I learned being in the computer industry in the 90s and doing the POS systems and everything, that when we built Edible, we built the website, we built our own POS system, we built our own training system, we built everything to run the stores. Having that experience is probably what got us to those 500 stores, because everything was systematic. You know, the internet was, you know, it's you know, for most business owners, now that the size we are, the internet is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing that it brings you a lot of business, but it's a curse that it makes you lazy. And lazy in the sense that you think that that's the only way the business is going to come in, even though the best way is when you interact with the customer. People like that touch. People like the interaction. People like the phone call. So we now are going back and pretty much saying, hey, the internet, it's going to naturally grow. Do not worry about the internet. Worry about the phone contact. Worry about bringing the customer in, because everybody thinks the internet's going to take over one day. I don't think the internet's going to take over. So that whole thing of malls. You went to malls, then people started going to, you know, to Main Street, and they started walking downtown New Haven, and everybody thought people were leaving downtown. Now downtown is making it. So I think there's a revival happening of people coming into stores again, people visiting, taking their kids, and you know, so there is that. So I think we just have to be careful, and as long as you can and I always have said it's the brick and the click. You know, it's not brick or click or things like that, or everything is moving to the brick. It's the balance of the two. And the internet is, it's amazing the things you can do with it, but at the same time, 50% of our people are coming in through our store, and as we focus more on that, that tends to grow. And the interaction, the loyalty, and the following is a lot better when that customer gets to touch you and gets to be connected to you than through the website, because anybody can do the website. You know, people can give a perception of this large operation working out of a garage. where it's really your store that is the reality. So we're actually doing a whole concept called the click through the brick. So we want to cause the clicks to happen through our bricks. So the whole campaign is store first. So everything starts with the store. We introduced you to a store. You're connected to a store. You're connected to that owner. And we know naturally you're 50% of the time you're going to go to the web. Or most of the time you're going to go to the web and then find out there's something at the store that I should go there. So that's the big push right now.
Amanda has a question over there.
We're friends on LinkedIn. So I'm actually starting a company that's going to head to these countries. So when you started your first store that's international, what were any pitfalls or obstacles that you faced?
Everything you do internationally is a pitfall. So you just have to go in knowing what wheel is going to fall off when, because so many things are out of our control. So what countries?
I'm actually a citizen there as well, Paraguay.
Paraguay, okay. So the nice thing is that you know the country, so look, I think we should take our kids as soon as they turn 17 or 18, put them on a plane and send them. The world is global now. And China is doing it more than the Americans are doing it, where most of their kids are here. And they're going back and creating businesses that are just amazing. So, my daughter, as soon as she finishes college, she'll intern or work in China for a year just to kind of go get the experience, because the world it's global now because of the internet. So what you're doing is amazing, to be able to learn what you learned here and to kind of build a bridge and everything. So for you, because you understand the country and you know the market's real easy, so you know. So the pitfalls are, I call it the googly-eyed effect, which is that you go there and say, you think everything's going to just work great. Well, it's not. Go the exact opposite to say, no, things aren't going to work, and may not work. So you tend to be, I call it paranoia. A lot of people call it being careful. I just call it paranoia. You just go into it with paranoia to say, no, that's not going to work. How are we going to make sure it's going to work? Don't just go that just because it's American, just because we go here, people aren't. And work ethics are very different, and people's ethics and dealing with people are very different. And the sooner you can learn that, most people, when we go into it, we're so used to things here where we go into a partnership, it's a partnership. When we go into a dealing with someone, it's a dealing. The person works for you, where there the thinking is very, very different. And you're not going to be managing it. So that picking the right partner, picking the right employees, doing that, spend a lot of time. You really have to use that concept of hire slow, fire fast. You really have to true to say, as soon as you get a feeling, you have to part company with that person. And then you hire very, very carefully, and you bring on the people very, very carefully. Otherwise, you'll lose a lot of money. So that's probably, it's really the people challenge. Being from that country, you understand that a little bit and everything, but being honest to yourself, that's very important. And setting your expectations, leave a little room for surprise, not in a good way, in a bad way too, to say, so know that this may happen. That's the only thing. So, and then don't quit. On a lot of these international markets, like when we went to China in the beginning, I couldn't find containers and no supplier would supply us. I flew over to China. I didn't understand anyone. I stopped in Hong Kong, picked up somebody in Hong Kong, went over to China, visited factory from factory, until somebody started ordering products for us. It's one of our most profitable businesses, the supply chain. And now we're building it where we're going to start selling to other companies. The best thing we ever did. But there were so many reasons and so many things of why I should have quit. Along the way, you lose a shipment, somebody quits and he messes up the books, and you want to just wrap everything up and leave. No, you roll up your sleeves, you go there, you clean it up, and then one day it just clicks. You end up finding the right people, they start running it, and there's just this time. You just have to, I think it tests you. Every international market tests you and see if you're really serious about making a big business. My pleasure.
I have two questions. The first one is, what do you think the biggest mistake you've ever made as an entrepreneur is?
I think I made a lot of little mistakes, but I don't think I made any big mistakes. Because if I made big mistakes, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you right now. So and not only that, I really would be disingenuous to say, oh, I made big mistakes. And it's been a blessing after a blessing. I just think that to be here and to sit here, to start out in East Haven, Connecticut with a 600 square foot shop to build this, I mean, there's not, I did something wrong that God blessed us with such a success. So I don't think we made any mistakes, big mistakes. I made a lot of little mistakes, that, and some of those mistakes were that I didn't listen to people. My grandfather was big on partnerships. He said 2 partnerships. His opinion on partnership was, number 1, avoid them. Do not ever do them. So I'm like, well, that's not an option sometimes. He goes, well, then if you're going to do it, put the paperwork together before you actually spend 1 cent into it. And define everything, meaning if you are the majority owner in it, define you're the majority owner. If you are going to run it, tell them I'm going to run it, I make all the calls and everything. And then tell your other partners from the beginning, give them bad news. And they'll agree with you and they'll sign anything before you start the business. But after your business is successful, they'll tear you apart, and because you run the business. So I think those are some of the mistakes that I made that sometimes, you get trusting and you start thinking, no, it'll work out. Now I trust you. Instead of just being practical and saying, no, let's put it on a contract. This is how it's going to work, and this is the salary I'm going to get. These are the things. And so that's probably, and that mistake everybody makes. And sometimes they make it to the demise of their business. So that I didn't listen to, and and then my grandfather gave me that because they had a business in the 30s and 40s. They were making gauze in the middle of World War II. And they said that they would have a line of trucks 10 to 30 deep waiting to pick up gauze. So they said they were cotton farmers. They grew cotton. And somebody told them that, hey, instead of selling cotton, I want you to buy these ginning machines and make gauze. And he said, we started making gauze, and then next thing you know, there was a shortage of gauze in the world, and we started, but within 2 years of that business becoming very successful, third year into it, it pretty much went out of business because of family infighting. They had no contracts, they had nothing, not defining who does what, all that other stuff. And so people randomly started choosing, he's the president now, he's the CEO, he's this, he's that. And at the end of it, there was fighting, and they kicked out the person who they really needed. And when they kicked them out, the business went out of business. So they weren't protecting the business. So I think in business, one of the best lessons I learned is that you always protect the business, because the business is going to take care of everyone else. It'll take care of the family, it'll take care of everyone, because the money trickles down. But if the business is the one that's under attack, you're in trouble, because if that's where people start, so setting up a proper structure in the business, setting it up right at the beginning and everything, and being bold enough to say, hey, this is what's going to happen and this is how I'm going to do it. It has to be done that way. That's probably one of the little mistakes. Second is not making rules for yourself. Somebody taught me a long time ago that, that God gave commandments. There's a constitution, that defines what the rules are. In a business, you should have a Bill of Rights, or you should have something that defines what are your 10, and I don't want to compare it to commandments or anything, because that is, what are your 10 rules that define you as a business person or as a human being. And I did it for a little while. I would always get up to 3 and I wouldn't do it. Then I started to force myself, and every year I will write down the 10 things. And I will go and tweak it, because that year you learn something that one of those rules don't apply anymore, and a new rule goes in. Why? Because somebody misled you in something, and you say, okay, I'm only going to be burned once, but not twice. And if something sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. So I think the sooner you can do that, the better. So I think I probably didn't stay true to that advice. Those are probably the little mistakes, but beyond that, you make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. You just got to write them out. You're going to make mistakes, and people are going to point out things. People are going to say things. You just got to write it out. But I have done more right things because I listened to people. When I started a business, there's this great tradition in business. I learned. I would sit at circles, and people will tell you about how under the table, like not paying people cash, and. My grandfather had this rule. He said that stealing is stealing, even if you steal $1 or $1 million, and if you turn around and you steal from the government, it's still stealing. So he goes, there's no blessing in stealing, so don't ever steal. And people would give rules about, but the taxes are so high and all that stuff. He goes, it doesn't really matter. It will work. So I would go by Bradley's. Back then it was Bradley's, and I was wondering, I know all these people are telling me they own businesses and they pay people under the table, do all this stuff. Bradley's doesn't, and look how big they are. Walmart doesn't, look how big they are. Could it be that they got so big because they always do it right? So I think a lot of those things were very, very, so because you will get an audit. You will have an audit in the 10 years or 15 years of your business. The audit that I had lasted 5 minutes. They came in, they wanted checkbooks, I put everything in front of them, looked at everything, and then the lady said, okay, thank you. I said, well, what happened? She goes, well, we wanted to do a labor audit, but we saw checks written for $5. And I said, well, I ever pay everybody, even if a person came in and they worked 1 hour and they were paying $5 an hour, I would write them a check. He said, well, we saw that, we knew that you're not hiding any money. So, and that came back, that advice that my grandfather gave, otherwise it would have cost me so much money. So I think those things, of the things you do right and you stay true to, are more important than the mistakes that happen. Because if you do those things right, the mistakes that happen aren't really your doing. Somebody tricks you, somebody steals something, somebody turns on and does something. And you always survive those, you always survive them. It's when you try to outsmart things is when you get in trouble. Then you risk. The greatest asset we have is time. And in growing a business, the greatest things you're wasting is time. What you're losing is time. And if you're not doing it right every day, you're never going to get that time back. So doing it right from the beginning, because there's just this test of time that happens that the business just takes off one day. I mean, like WhatsApp, $19 billion. I mean, these guys are making this little Instagram thing going back and forth, staying true to their thing and just, not selling it to anyone, doing it the right way, doing all that stuff. Suddenly Facebook comes around and pays them $19 billion for it. Stuck it out. So I think you just got to stick it out. So it's probably the doing the right things and then writing out the mistakes and everything.
You had one more?
I did have.
Shoot.
What's the most important thing you've done to build a positive culture?
I tell you, I haven't been that good at building good culture. I tend to be very focused on product and very focused on the success of something, that at times I'm not the best of people from an environment point of view, because I'm so focused on trying to make something successful that I'm not feely touchy. And I think people have to work hard. I think we all have to work hard. People have to carry their weight. And when in our organization, I would say there's probably about, you can count them, people that just work so hard that they carry maybe 80% of the company, So I tend to focus on those people. And then, so what happens at that point is a lot of people will blame you that you don't focus on everyone. And I had to train myself to kind of go and focus on others, because they add value, they have something. So I think there is a bit of that. But we have people, we have a culture committee, so you have to set these things up. We have a culture committee, and the job of that culture committee is to work on culture, and they do all that. And I focus on big picture stuff. Now I'm focusing a lot on the team leader owning their people. So if you're the VP of operations, all the people under you are your people. They're not the company's people, they're your people. You own them. If they're happy, great job. If they're not happy, it's your fault. So I think that, but as a business owner, we sometimes forget that. We think everybody's our responsibility. So if somebody's not happy, and it's the greatest lesson I ever learned. I mean, this I just started doing about a year and a half ago, to say, no, Janet doesn't work for me. Janet works for you. So I don't even know her. You hired her, all that stuff. So it took me a lot, because I used to think that they work for me, it's my responsibility. It's not, because I am disconnected. I'm focusing on big picture stuff. And if I don't do that, and I'm starting, so I think you have to set that up. You have to set up the culture. For me, getting the business done is very important. So I've set up other people that take care of a lot of those things now and everything. And you should do I think every business should do that. And it's so important now with the next generation of people that are working for you. They're very socially connected. They're always on Facebook. They're spending average 6 hours on Facebook or social media every single day. So I think the office environment or the work environment has totally changed. And a lot of us don't keep up. I just did a little thing about a week and a half ago. We're pushing Facebook all through our system, every franchisee to have their Facebook page. But come to find out, most of my executives aren't even comfortable on Facebook. So we're actually training all of them on how do you use Facebook, why do you need it, and all that other stuff. Why should you have a page? So I think doing some of that, what your employees do or your staff is going to do, getting involved in that is very, very important. And it's so easy now. You see their birthday, you just write, happy birthday. And it's not like you have to take them to lunch anymore or do all the stuff we used to do. You know, well, happy birthday, and send them a little thing. You know, and you could do it, you know, in a broadcast. So the expectation is, I think the expectation is very low compared to write a card, take them out to lunch. And now you just go to their Facebook page and put up a little video. You know, oh, hi, happy birthday, you know, something like that. So, but learning that new way is very important because that's the generation you're hiring. That's the one who's going to take your business over and run your business. So we have a whole group of people that do that in our company now.
All right, last question. Right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Cupcakes.
Cupcakes, yes.
No, you mentioned cupcakes. So I'm just curious, did you make the decision to go to cupcakes before or after Crumbs, sadly, crashed and burned?
I actually know the CEO of Crumbs, so
Okay, and if it was after Crumbs, say sadly, closed its doors, are you concerned about whether or not this is a direction to go in because cupcakes seem to be in a bit of disarray now?
Oh no, we never did real cupcakes. It's a pineapple cut in the shape of a cupcake that's double dipped. So it's still fruit, but we just love the shape of cupcakes, you know. So it's more the shape of cupcakes than actual cupcakes. We would actually never do real cupcakes. So you know, there was an opportunity to work with a lot of these companies and everything. Yeah, it's really not a threat from that, but we stay true to fruit. Everything we do is fruit. And you know, even our partnerships, it has to be at the core, all natural, real, you know, real fruit. Even in our drinks that we're making, it has to be real fruit. It has to be cut that day, blended in front of you, all that. So, which is really difficult, but the nice thing is in our stores, it's easy because we already have fruit. A lot of these concepts don't have the fruit. They have to get processed or they have to get frozen. You know, but I wouldn't, you know, I'm very, very careful. If you look at our product lines, you know, people will ask, why aren't you carrying chocolate bars? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? I think inventory is what kills businesses. And diversifying is when you get to a menu and you try to sell everything. For the first 4 years, I would not let franchisees carry more than 9 arrangements. And they would call me and say, you know, we need more arrangements. I said, no, you think we need more arrangements. The customers don't. So when a customer comes and have tried all your 9 arrangements, then we'll try to do the 10th one. Start tracking it. Most people call on the phone and say, hey, edible arrangements, it's a birthday. What do you think? So we say, well, how about this? So but if we start to do all these items, you won't make any money because you'll make money on 4 things, but the 3 will sit in inventory. And the concept is to make money, and you know, there is really nothing in that. You know, we can service the customer, and you have to have a healthy business. So from that point, we're very, very careful on a lot of those items, and most of the items that we're doing now, where there are opportunities for partnerships and everything, you know, but it'll take away from something. It'll take away from that core message of trying to stay true to fruit.
Thank you. Tariq, thank you for coming out.
Thank you. And I think a round of applause for what he's been doing. And
thank you.
Just the great job you're doing, and especially what trying to build and everything.
I do appreciate it.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great job.
Again, I'm sure I can speak for everybody. We definitely thank you. Thank you for supporting, you know, what we're doing not only here locally in Wallingford with the startup ecosystem, but also all over the state and globally as well. So, thank you very much.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
you very much.